Hey guys, FTK here. I just wanted to really quickly just say I've been really busy with my new job. That's why I haven't put out a video for like 8 weeks. But I'm going to try and make as much time as I can. I've got a few videos planned and you should see those come up in the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed. With that being said, without further ado, here's why you should play Granblue. Granblue lore is simple, but in my opinion, very effective. The lore is essentially that there are many pirate crews on the seas of Cray, all committing crime and raiding and doing pirate things, but they're all loosely under the command of Nightmist, which is kind of like, he's like the grand leader, which is respected by all of them. And all the different monsters and other kind of horrors you get in the clan also reflect the mysteries and sort of potential danger of the sea. And as such, it really does all sort of meld together to make a really cool lore for what is a really cool clan. Since day one, back in BT02, Granblue has established itself as a deck that uses the drop zone like a second hand. The strength of the deck has always come from being able to make plays from the drop zone while being able to conserve resources, i.e. in the hand. A trait shared with its Rummy Labyrinth sister clan, When the game started, this was at times underwhelming due to the resurrections needing a lot of counterblasts, but that's changed with the release of their G support-ish. So take one last swig of that rum and let's take a look at the decks you can make from Granblue. Let's start with the new kid herself, Night Rose, and the hollow keyword that she brought to the game with her trial deck. She's our G avatar, and rightly so. When you stride onto her, you can counterblast 1 to resurrect 1 unit from the drop zone and give it 2000 power. This skill will begin so many of your plays it's unbelievable, and can be comboed to devastating effect, which I'll go into detail about a little later on. Her GB2 is an incredibly versatile skill, possibly even the most versatile in the game at the moment. When a unit is sent to your drop zone, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the drop zone to recall it to a rearguard circle. The cost seems heavy, but in the right situation can swing the game drastically. Because of our keyword, Hollow. Hollow is a state rearguards can enter when they are called, which means they will retire at the end of the turn. However, these units will have strong skills that activate when they are hollowed, or when they are retired because of Hollow. A good example of this is the starting Vanguard most people use, Grenake, or Grenak, or Grenache, I'm not sure how you say his name, but him. When he is retired because of Hollow, you can countercharge too, which, by the way, as Granblue eats counterblast like a god-eating zombie shark, is a massive thing. With the skill of Night Rose, you can use counterblast 4 in a turn, using all your skills, all your attacks, everything you need to do. And then with her GB2, in combination with Grenake, countercharge all of that back to be able to do the same thing again, which is massive. You can also combo when Negro Lazy, a unit that resurrects another unit when called, is sent to the drop zone during your opponent's turn to then call Skeleton Cannoneer, hollowed, which by the way is possibly one of the best commons in the game, like 100% in Granblue, but maybe in the game, except maybe Nurse a Broken Heart. But this guy kills her, because you can then use his skill when he's hollowed to retire and get a draw during your opponent's turn. This is immense. This is the kind of versatility that creates plays you need to think about a little bit, but if executed correctly, can really devastate your opponent's turn. We also have cards like Nightstorm, Colombard, and Negrabone that allows us to get extra battle phase attacks at the cost of counterblasts, which, as we've learnt, isn't really a problem. These are the kind of plays that make Night Rose an incredible deck. In Rummy Labyrinth, we get our second, slightly less inspiring Night Rose that allows us to call extra units when we resurrect at the cost of soul. Her GB2 is to Soul Blast 1 when a card is called from your drop zone to rearguard. You can pay the cost. If you do, you call a grade 1 behind her. This is a Vanguard and rearguard skill, so it's not too bad. Her on-stride skill is to send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, resurrect 1, and if it's has the hollow ability, whether or not you call it as hollowed, it gains 3000 power. It's not a terrible card. It's nice to have a Vanguard that has hollow, as well as, you know, a rearguard skill. But the important thing is that we now have more than 4 ride targets that have Night Rose in their name, that then meet the requirements of skills such as Negrolazes, which requires a Night Rose Vanguard. Our Stride library has also become very powerful. Obadiah is still the perfect first ride because of the utility and drop zone fueling he brings. His skill is to, when you place him on the Vanguard circle, choose 3 cards from your deck and send them to the drop zone. And if at least 2 of those sent were hollow, you can call a normal ghosty unit from your drop zone behind the Vanguard. Like, this does so much for the deck. Obviously, you can fuel your drop zone, which, as I've mentioned before, is like our second hand. This also presents the perfect way with the new-ish Bale the Ghosty unit, which is a very strong countercharging unit that also gains power. Through his being a ghosty normal unit, using Obadiah's skill is a really good way to get Grenade from your rearguard circle into your drop zone, ready to fuel your countercharging. Rummy Labyrinth brings us a number of strides, one of which is a potential option to play as a first stride. The skill is activating when it's put on the Vanguard circle, same as Obadiah. You put up to 4 cards from the top of your deck into your drop zone. This is kind of interesting because you can get more mills than Obadiah, or less if you need, but you also don't control what they are. Then, for each normal unit put into the drop zone this way, your Vanguard, this guy, gets plus 5k until the end of turn. And then if the number of trigger units put into drop zone this way is 2 or more, you resurrect one for free. So it's one of those kind of gamble cards. If you already have a number of cards in your drop zone from guarding, or if you went kind of in a bit heavy because they played a lot of rear guards and you're trying to counter that, this guy can be a good option because obviously you're getting the mills, you're getting potential power, and a potential free resurrection. And there is no cost, the same as Obadiah. Obviously you lose the calling Bale over Grenak to get him into the drop zone, but it has its pros and cons, because this guy could also be used late game, because God forbid your Grenak gets bound by a Narukami user, or you were silly and you left Grenak on the field against a Messiah player and you don't have access to the counter charge. This is a free way where you can potentially get a resurrect and a load of power as well, so it's definitely a unit to consider. A big finish unit for the longest time has been the grade 4 Night Rose. Her skill is, when she attacks, you counterblast 2, flip a copy of herself, and then call 2 units in 2 different rows. This unfortunately means you can't get 2 front row attackers, but you can get an additional column. As we know, Grenade means counterblast if managed properly, and skills and abilities used properly isn't really an issue. So the whole counterblast 2 thing, not really a problem. We then got My Read from a Fights collection. Problem with My Read was she had quite a high cost, and the first time you used it, she really needed to be the first stride, which you as a Granblue player didn't really want to do. You really wanted to go into Obadiah. In my opinion, she was kind of a placeholder stride until we got the new support, which came out in set 8. Some people still choose to use her. My personal opinion is the first time you use her is too much of a high cost, because the problem is you have to counterblast and ditch a card and flip a copy of herself, and on the first time you use it, all you get out of that is 1 call. It's only on the second and third time that she becomes good, in my opinion, but that first time for me is too much of a big deal. So unfortunately, I don't believe she has the longevity to survive post Rummy Labyrinth. In fact, a lot of people now, since set 8, don't even use her. And then we got this guy, Gosh, I'm not sure how you say his name, but I believe this is kind of the reason why My Read stopped seeing play in a lot of people's decks. He's just really strong. His skill is, when you place him on the Vanguard circle, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, you then move cards from your soul to the drop zone, and then call back the same number of cards as which you sent from your soul. So obviously this is really strong because we've got cards that go into the soul, the like of both of our crits, so at least 8 cards in our deck that can end up in the soul, plus soul charging from things like King Serpent and things like that. Just really, really strong, because then for every face-up card in your G-Zone, every unit called gets an extra 1000 power, which, you know, makes it an incredibly versatile unit. If we really do need to go and push, as bad as it sounds, if they're grade stuck or if they haven't got good calls or rides, or they had to use a lot of hand, they had to G-assist, things like that, this is a card that can quickly close the game, purely based on, you know, the amount you can do. Obviously, if they've given you a lot of damage, again, you can go in and have big plays. It's a card that you can use as your first stride, or sort of like as a finisher, or just sort of a mid-game push. It's just a really strong card, and I think that at least 2 will be seen in every Night Rose deck, if not every Granblue deck, post Rummy Labyrinth. Speaking of Rummy Labyrinth, we get a few new other strides too. Our triple R is Diabolist of Corpse Negrosonga, which allows us to counterblast and discard to, after his attack, check the top 4 and send 1 to the drop zone. We then call 1 rearguard to the field and give it 5000 for every card in our G-Zone. Again, this is a very strong skill that can be used potentially even as a first stride or any other time. What we're getting from these cards is a lot more versatility, because you can get, you know, late game, easy 30-40k column on a rearguard after Vanguard attack. It's pretty immense, it's strong, really good. We're also getting a GR, Pirate King of Redemption Dragoot, who, for the hefty cost of a discard and a counterblast 2, calls units from a drop zone up to the same number of units you have, and then retire 1 of your units for every hollow unit you call back. And then you draw a card if they have no rearguards. This can be potentially devastating or even game ending, but like most of our strides, if not all, there is a time for it, and if you don't get that just right, it can really basically devastate yourself. So what we're getting is a G-Zone that has a lot of variety, a lot of options. You just need to know when and where the right time is to use them. Night Rose is a very strong deck, and each and every one of these strides and cards are going to make it a really strong deck. But Rummy Labyrinth doesn't just give us Night Rose, and there are a lot more pirates on the sea. We're also going to see in Rummy Labyrinth some new 7 Seas cards, which is really cool, and unless you play 7 Seas Grade 1 Rush, in which case you are awful, truly awful. But it's cool to see that Night Mist, who is supposed to be like the Grand Master leader of Granblue, will still be able to be played if you want to. We're also getting some ghosty support at last. Obadiah will finally have some friends to play with. We're also getting a new stride. My understanding of it is essentially that it's same Granblue goodness, but it's slightly more budget, slightly more silly looking, and it's almost like an access point to people who may not be wanting to drop a lot of money on the clan, which is always really cool. I may actually go into a little bit more detail about new ghosty stuff, and maybe even make a deck of it for fun, because like I was saying, it is really budget, so watch this space, that video may be coming. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to once again look at the cards that either haven't stood the test of time, or actually were just really shit. So first off, let's talk about the pros, which you'll see on screen now. It's a very strong, versatile clan. There is so much you can do with it. Even within Night Rose itself as a deck, you just have so many options, and with Rummy Labyrinth, our G-Zone is so diverse now that we just have a lot of plays we can make. Really good. And outside of that, you've also got 7 Seas you can play. You've also got Ghosties you can play. There really are a lot of options. And aside from that, the card art on Granblue units is just really cool. You know, you've got a badass vampire princess, all the way down to sort of like all the kinds of different zombies and monsters, and, you know, right down to like the Ghosties, which are just like a little sweet kind of archetype. And that's not even to mention the fact that they are very well supported, given that Arm, however you say her name, is a semi-main character in the anime. So you know we're going to be getting decent support, and Rummy Labyrinth really does deliver that. Now for the not so good stuff about the clan. It's very popular. Since Night Rose came out, the clan has exploded and people wanting to play it, and you know, understandably so. It is really cool. The cards can be kind of hard to find. The trial deck cards even can become chase cards, and the prices online can be silly, especially with people knowing that there is support coming out. The majority of the cards aren't too bad, but you do get one or two which will set you back quite a bit, especially if you're going for like a hyper competitive deck. The deck also has a relatively steep learning curve. It's one of those decks you can pick it up and play it and have great fun and probably do quite well with it, but some of the more technical plays do take a little bit of getting used to. This isn't a con so much as it's a thing of you need to be willing to put that time into the deck to be able to get the most out of it. So to conclude, Granblue is probably one of my favourite clans. They're one of the few decks that I've had and kept and not got rid of, like the Night Rose deck that I have. I've literally had since GBT6, and I've never really wanted to get rid of it. It's just that kind of deck. It really is a clan for everyone, in my opinion, because there are just so many different options. Like, the Night Rose deck is really competitive and strong. 7C's also strong for a deck that you want to rush in. And now with the new support, we're also getting Ghosties, which, you know, are just a deck that's a bit of fun. Obviously, well, I say it's a deck for everyone. It's not everyone's thing. Not everyone likes pirates or ocean-themed decks. But if you've seen anything in this video you like, I'd recommend giving Granblue a look at, because it is a really cool deck, a really fun deck, and obviously if you play the English game, Rummy Labyrinth is only a few months away, you'll have a lot of support to look forward to. So that's why you should play Granblue. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. But real talk, can we talk about this thing for a second? Like, what is going on here? You've got a giant zombie shark eating another zombie shark, eating another zombie shark, and look at the colour in the background. This is underwater. It looks so horrible. And like, that doesn't even take into account the name. God-eating zombie shark. This thing is massive. What the Bushy? What is this? Damn.